Hi, I'm Jami.
And I'm Hugo.
Welcome to No Particular Place to Go, where two middle-aged guys on opposite sides of the Atlantic talk rubbish about cars, car culture, ownership, track days, modifications, and pretty much anything else related to cars. We're not professionals, as you'll shortly hear, but a big part of our lives revolve around all things with four wheels. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to pull up our list of topics as well. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Podcast topics. But I did have, well, I think you had something to start off with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
do.
let's jump into that.
Yeah, I certainly have some thought because it's been a little while since we've chatted.
Yeah.
And I feel quite a lot has happened in sort of general terms and also car related. I think when we last talked, I was just about to go and buy a silly French sports car.
That's
and
right.
I don't know whether I'd actually picked it up yet.
You had definitely not picked it up yet.
Okay. So I have now picked up the silly French sports car and have been driving it sort of actually, I mean, it's filthy because it's like for a little while this week, it was our only family car. And I was doing multiple runs to the station and back to like take Felix to school and take Kirsty to London and stuff like that. Like the family taxi has become an A110. Essentially.
Oh, wait! I thought you got a Citroen DS. What do you mean? A110? What are you talking about?
Citroen DS would be cool as well. Actually, that would be on my long list.
That would work well on your bumpy roads, right? With the hydraulic suspension and.
Actually, that would be perfect. That would actually be ideal because part of the reason why we were down to one car and had this highly inappropriate family taxi for half the week is that. I can't remember whether I told you this, but basically, because I mean, UK roads, terrible, potholes everywhere.
Yeah.
Our Volvo, which is sort of our family car, cracked an alloy wheel back in December that we managed to get repaired. Like they welded it and it was fine. And then we recently.
Okay. So it was pretty bad.
Pretty bad. But they fixed it and it was okay and it was rolling again. And then it went in for its service a couple of weeks ago and they were like, yeah, it needs new tires. And we're like, okay, fine. We put new tires on it. And then it was having a slow puncture again. And I was like, oh, some bullshit, like, new tires, whatever. And took it back to the tire place. And they're like, no, it's not the tire. Like you've got a crack in your wheel again. And
Is it
then
the same wheel?
Same wheel.
Oh my gosh.
And so they go back and they're like, this is not repairable. And so, what was it? £600-700 later for one alloy wheel for one Volvo and 4 days on the road. And you get it back from the dealer and they haven't even washed it. So,
and this was brand new, like straight from Volvo. You didn't go secondhand or anything like that.
Well, so when the wheel was, yeah. Because I was looking a bit, but then I guess you never really know what you're going to get. And I don't remember if we kind of talked about this at the time, but like the last 997 that I had in the US, I bought a set of wheels off eBay for, and when they came, I think all 4 of them had been welded, and I was a bit like, that wasn't on the listing. There was no photo of that. Like I was not expecting that for the whatever it was, $1,500 or something I paid for a set of like nearly 20-year-old rims sort of thing. And I mean, again, like, I don't know, being a bit naive, I'm sort of like, well, is it okay to be driving on 4 rims that have all been welded in a sort of like performance car? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think, strictly speaking, yes, but you don't know how well they were welded. What's the quality? I would have the same reservations that you do. It's like, okay, one welded wheel, but all 4? That's a lot.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, I go, okay, fair enough. The roads are bad around us, right? Like there are some pretty vicious potholes, fine. But like, I mean, I know you're joking, but you're right as well. It's like, well, we solved this like half a century ago with like French cars that actually, I don't know, had suspension travel, right? Like, and
Yes.
were kind of designed for bumpy roads. And now it's like, no, you have to have like 25-inch rims on your Range Rover, and like, and like that much sidewall,
Yes.
and and of course it's cracked all the time. Like, I remember I had a 5 Series Touring at some point, and it had, I think they were BMW wheels, but I think they were like sort of oversized. That the person, I
Oh,
mean, they looked pretty cool, but like, and that had run flat tires as well. So basically, it just didn't ride at all, and that cracked an alloy, and that was a grand to fix it. Um,
yeah.
and
See,
I
this
remember when
is.
I took it off, like there was literally a hole in the tire where it like all sort of
Oh
like
my gosh.
delaminated. And you're like, oh
Yeah, see,
dear me.
this is one of the billion reasons how you know you're old is you prioritize ride comfort and convenience over looks.
Mm,
And you're
yes.
just like, well, I want to waft down this road. I don't want to feel every bump. And the 19-year-old you is like, I'm fine. My back is fine. This looks cool. And that's all that matters.
Yes. Yes.
And the
Yes.
19-year-old you, of course, to the 40 plus year old you is like, you're an idiot. Shut up.
Yeah. And the 40-plus-year-old me that's going, and then why did you go out and buy a silly two-seater French sports car when you
Well,
go out like a daily driver at the moment?
well, that's easy. That I'm not insinuating this is you, but for a lot of people, it's just 3 words. Well, I think it's even 2 words. Mid life crisis, and you're just like, yeah. But I think you get to a point you're like, well, I've lived half my life, and if I'm lucky, I've got another half to go, and I kind of worked my tail off at this point. So you're just saying, fuck it, let's
Yeah.
go and do the sport car thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, certainly there is some of that at play. And I would be lying if I said that I haven't experienced quite a few moments of joy in that vehicle, despite the fact that I'm tippy toeing along these like broken country roads at like 30 miles an hour because it's like single track and I don't want to hit a pothole. And I'm just imagining a tractor barreling towards me. I'm like, how do I get out of its way without scratching all of my lovely bright blue paintwork?
Yeah,
Um,
so yeah, tell us more about this because I'm living the A110 Forbidden Fruit experience vicariously through you. So I have
yeah.
no idea what it's like. I think you mentioned over messages that you had like some fault codes or issues with the transmission, but you just turn it off, turn it back on, it's gone. But is it
Yeah.
everything that everyone says it is?
I mean, in some ways, I suppose in some ways, yes, right? Because it is like quite a unique kind of driving experience compared to sort of what's out there. And like to that previous point, like if you want a 2.5 ton metric electric SUV that costs you 80 grand, like there are so many options out there and they're kind of all a bit the same and all a bit shit, if you ask me, right?
Yeah.
But and then actually if you go, okay, I want a lightweight sports car that will fit someone over 6 foot tall and be practical enough that you could daily it, but special enough that you would still enjoy it on a Sunday morning. Like, what is there out there? It's like sort of MX5, A110. Like, I mean, they've stopped making Lotus Elises, and that's, I mean, I can't fit in those anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite a sort of unique proposition, I guess. And I think there is something about it that I kind of appreciate insofar as that, and you'll have seen this in a lot of reviews. It's like there's Renault switchgear all over the place. There's some pretty scratchy plastics, like all of that kind of stuff. And yet you kind of feel like people who really cared about driving got to kind of decide, like, got to call some of the shots here. Because actually, even on these horrific bumpy roads and stuff, like the way that it, like, it enjoys being driven, sort of thing.
That's
And I
awesome.
think it's a bit sort of like indefinable, but like it's, and I mean, they're kind of, there's something cool about it as well, insofar as it kind of has that rare thing of like, you drive around in it, obviously it's quite rare and it's quite sort of special and all the rest of it, but I don't think, at least I don't feel like a wanker in it. Do you know what I mean?
That's
Like,
good. Yeah. No, I
if
hear
I
what you're
just got a
saying.
brand new 911 and I was cruising around, I would feel like people are kind of looking at me going like, oh, you bellend.
Yeah, and no offense to people who drive 911s. I think
Well,
I mean, well, that would include you. I don't mind offending you. It's okay. But yeah, this 911 has never done it for me. And sometimes, as someone who likes cars and not really a big fan of the 911, you definitely feel like the odd person out, because I think almost universally everyone's like, "Oh, 911 is it," and all the million variants of it. The 911 is definitely up on a pedestal. But for me, I was telling a friend just the other day, I was like, I just never got over their looks. They look weird to me. And the current ones are like massive. I thought they were more interesting when they were much smaller. Like 993 size.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is, in a way, the A110 is almost like the original sort of 60s 911s, right? Like quite small, quite lightweight, like not massively powerful, right? Like sort of designed to be kind of delicate and for the road.
Yeah.
And it does feel to me like the 911 has become, I don't know, like what a Lambo Gallardo was 20 years ago, right? Like,
that's interesting.
It's a sort of big, wide, powerful poser's car, rather than something that you're going to take to the shops and parallel park in a little village somewhere, kind of thing.
And I think there's a lot to be said for cheaper cars, cheaper sports cars as well. Yeah. I was talking to somebody just this week, and he was saying, I'm surprised that you don't currently own or haven't owned a Porsche in the past. And I said, and his recommendation was, you should sell your Miata and get one. And I was like, no, I'm never selling. I mean, that car in particular, I'd be open to selling it for another Miata. But the truth is, not worrying about it is so freeing. Yeah. And you're just like, I don't care if it gets a stone chip. I don't care. Like, I don't want those to happen, but I don't care if it gets a ding. And especially, I don't care if something happens on track. I shouldn't say I don't care, but it's a lot less concerning if something happened to my 911.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, like, even to a degree, I feel like that in the Alpine, because it's all Renault bits, right? And it's like, if something goes wrong, it's not going to be Lamborghini money to fix it, right? Yes. Like, it's going to be Renault money to fix it. Yeah. And I'm fine with that. And so, like, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm driving it every day, and it's filthy at the moment, but I'm enjoying it, right? Rather than it being this sort of perfect thing that I don't want to take out of the garage. Because I don't want
you got to use it. You got to use it for sure. Yeah. So, man, I'm excited. I was trying to think of the cheapest mid-engine car offered in the US today. Boxster?
Cayman?
Yeah, Boxster, Cayman. I'm trying to think of anything cheaper that fits that bill in the US.
Pontiac Fiero?
Yeah, Fiero. So yeah, if you go back, like, you had MR2, you had Fiero. Not that I've ever driven a Fiero.
Was there an Isuzu that was mid-engine, Piazza, or was that front-engined?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
You remember the Isuzu Piazza? I quite liked those for a while.
I don't even remember that car.
Oh, it had I think quite attractive sort of like quad square headlights.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
That would be a brilliant Festival of the Unexceptional. Actually, it's probably a bit too exceptional.
It's too nice. Too special. Yeah. I think if you wanted to go mid-engine in the US today, I think your best bet I think it's the 3rd gen MR2, or was MRS, the Spider.
Okay.
Those are really cheap, and I think they're getting more attention. I think people are realizing how good a deal they are.
Yeah.
I paid attention to them, but the looks for me just didn't work.
They were a bit sort of funny and bug-eyed, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah, like the headlights are too big for the size of the car. It had a weird look to it.
But again, like, the pleasure of a smaller, cheaper sports car, right? Rather than like the big sort of bludgeoning. Because I suppose the other mid-engine thing you have in the US is now Corvette, right?
That's right. Yes. Which are very cheap from what I understand right now. Apparently there are over 5,000 unsold Corvettes sitting on lots, and they're
Wow.
2023s and 2024. So dealers are desperate to get
Wow.
rid of them. I just for the heck of it, I just looked at even my local dealer, and they weren't big discounts, but they had discounts, and they were on
Hmm.
2025s. Even the
Hmm.
E-Ray was discounted, not a lot, but a
Hmm.
little bit. It was just a few thousand, but still. So I was like, man, if
Hmm.
you were a Corvette fan and you're holding out and you're waiting for prices to inverse from the
Yeah.
markups, like now's a pretty dang good time. It seems like there's a ton sitting out there
Yeah. I
now,
must say,
being
like,
almost April. So
yeah. I mean, I must say that the mid-engine vet never kind of like did it for me. I preferred the previous, like the latter generation of the. Like I looked at one of the, it's probably about like a 2018 Grand Sport front-engined one, and I kind of like that. I had a rental once that
oh
was, I think it was just a base model. It was convertible. It was automatic, but it's still like 450 horsepower or something. And like, I mean, in some ways, they're kind of, you can kind of swing it because it's like they're quite comfy cruisers,
yeah,
but you put your foot down and it makes a good noise and it's quick.
I mean,
Um,
to your point about your A110 being Renault parts, it's like I think that's one of the appeals is like it's a Chevrolet. And
yeah.
getting parts, I assume, would not be difficult. They made a ton of them. Yes, it's a pricier starting point, but it's not, well, I'm waiting for parts or parts are super expensive.
Mm,
You don't run into the challenges that you run into with European or sometimes even Japanese
yeah.
exotic cars, and you have
Yeah.
similar
Yeah.
performance. And it's
Yeah.
just more accessible and you worry about it less. If I
Yeah.
imagine if
Yeah.
you need a new fender for your Corvette, it's it might not be cheap, but it's definitely cheaper. And
Yeah.
you walk into any Chevy dealer and probably order it. I doubt they have it on hand, but that's pretty. That's again, it's the convenience and worry factor. It just makes it easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is something to be said for, like, as much as I really sort of enjoy cars and the experience of driving them and the experience of sort of owning them. I think I've said this to you before. Like, I often find like the process of buying and selling and maintaining and all the rest of it, it's so painful because it's like I feel like you're just getting gouged left, right, and center, and like it's just the whole thing is unpleasant. And much as I would never have another one, like there's something to be said for the sort of Tesla model of like, here is an app and I press a few buttons and I put in my credit card details, and guess what? A car shows up on my driveway, and I don't have to deal with anyone who's got like gel in their hair, sort
Yeah,
of thing.
you just make it easy. I
Yeah,
think most people prefer easy over difficult.
yeah,
No question about
totally,
it. So
totally,
you said something
totally.
that's interesting because you were talking about the CA Corvette, and for a lot of people say like, well, I don't worry as much about what the car looks like on the outside because I'm sitting on the inside. But for
Mm,
me, the how it looks on the inside, or excuse me, on the outside is a very big factor in what I think about
yeah,
a car. And I think the
yeah,
C8 Corvette is a perfect example. Mechanically, interior wise, totally fine, but incredibly capable car. If only it looked a bit better and it was a little bit smaller,
mm,
I would really, 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 really want one. I find
yeah.
myself there's a bunch of cars that like this, like the R35 GTR.
Mm,
Massive respect for that car. Strong desire to own one day. But if it looked a bit better to my eyes,
mm,
I would probably move heaven and earth to get one. But I'm just
mm,
not engaged with how it looks. I'm just kind of it looks
mm.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get that. I mean, I think like ultimately it needs to be a bit sort of heart and head.
Yes.
Like it's all well and good saying, oh, I can appreciate the engineering and I understand the packaging and all of, and all the reviews and this and this. But ultimately, if you kind of, if it's like the look back test, right? Like if you don't kind of want to, like when you walk away from it in a parking lot, go, cool, that's my car. Then it's always going to be like for all that expense and hassle and the whole bit. Yeah, I think that is definitely part of the experience of it for me as well.
It's not that different from human relationships, right? Like, I mean, if you're choosing a partner, you don't just go off personality. Like, the reality is the first thing you know about someone is how they look. And you go,
Yeah.
oh, and is that, I don't think that's shallow or vain. I think that's how we're wired. That's why we have
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
And I
I
think it
think
applies to
we're
cars too.
aesthetic creatures. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. I mean, it's funny because, we've been here now, what, like about a month in this sort of like creaky, drafty old house. And in many ways, like it's wildly impractical. And I'm like banging my head everywhere because the ceiling's quite low and I'd forgotten about that. But, but it's like, it has a lot of character and has this sort of like aesthetic appeal of like all the old beams and all this kind of shit, And again, it's sort of, it's a bit like the car equivalent of like what's sitting out there. It's like it's not the thing. If you're being purely practical and sort of spreadsheet driven and saying what is the best ROI that I can get on like a place to live or a conveyance for getting around, you'd never wind up with any of these answers, right? But I guess the point is that there's that sort of less tangible thing about human nature where you kind of go, yeah, but if something makes you happy or kind of like, touches your soul in some way, like that's actually worth a lot of other stuff. And the funny thing with the Alpine actually is I've been thinking about, because we had been like just running with the Volvo as a single car for, I don't know, 6 months or something, and I had sort of been thinking about like, oh, what's car number 2 going to be like, and what jobs does it need to do, and what criteria do I had this very sort of like a rational, I had a document going. I was like, thinking about all these kind of like, permutations of what it's going to be used for, and like, yes, I definitely want a heated steering wheel, and I like, all this kind of shit. And then I wind up going and blowing the budget on a car that does none of that stuff.
Super practical sports car. Sure.
I mean, Felix and I went to the supermarket in it last night, and I was joking. And it's like at some point, I was like, "We need to stop buying stuff now because it won't fit in the trunk. You'll have it on your lap."
And he's like, "Why did you buy this damn car then?"
Yeah. He's like, "You're an idiot. What have you done this for?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, that's pot calling the kettle black, isn't it?" But it's funny because like my colleague, she was talking to me the other day, like similar thing, one car kind of household and looking to buy a second car. And she lives somewhere up in the mountains in the Rockies in Colorado. I forget the name of the town, but like basically like up a mountain, like at altitude, where it's like snows all year round, and like her and her husband do like, massive ski trips, and they've got like huge dogs and the whole thing. And she's very sort of like left brain, I guess, very sort of like analytical. And she was like, well, we went through all the criteria and all the stuff that we wanted to do and blah, 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 blah. And so we came to the conclusion that we needed a full-size pickup truck. And I was sort of like, okay.
Wait, she didn't buy a Corvette?
yeah. I was like, but you should have come up with all that and then thrown it away and then got an Alpine.
But everyone needs an A110, no matter where they live and what they do.
Yeah. Like up a mountain, why not? Put winter tires on it. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting about that was like, I always assumed that like setting aside a few people that actually use them for work, probably most people that buy full-size pickup trucks in the US, like that's purely a heart thing. Right. Like you can't really make a case for like, I need to put 2 tons in the back of my, like how often are you actually doing that? Like it's more just because I want something big and takes up space and looks.
I think that applies not just to pickup owners, but I think a lot of large SUVs, full stop. Because I obviously don't have the research and the data, but I'm willing to bet that most people who own 7-seater SUVs don't use all those seats on a regular basis. Yeah. And I suspect that a lot of people they're planning for a small period of the year where they have family. And in my mind, I'm going to go rent a minivan when I have family in town. Yeah. But I have a 3-person household. I'm not going to buy, even a midsize SUV, much less a giant one. I think people do that.
Yeah. Well, it's even the sort of SUV versus minivan thing, right? Because like, are you actually going to go off-road in it? Like you're going to buy some Defender that has a winch and a snorkel and all this shit on it, and you live in Sausalito. It's like, get a grip. Like you just don't need that, and like you're not fooling anyone.
But to be fair, like I could apply the same to me. It's like, well, why do you have a mid-engine sports car? Like, do you track every day? You go to the track like maybe 5 times a year. Could you rent a car? Well, actually, you can't. Well, you could, but anyway, aside, I think it's what do you want to project? What image do you want to project when you're in that car? And I think the reality is like, hey, I want to project this, whether I'm in a Tesla or a Range Rover or a Miata, whatever that may project to people. It could vary.
Yeah.
So yeah. I obviously am obsessed with your A110. So I do want to ask, so what are the downsides so far? What have you kind of gone, this is not so great?
Well, I mean, other than the fact that it stalled on me and it had a weird gearbox fault and went into limp mode and it has little coughing fits. So sometimes as I'm like pulling up to a stop, like, and the DSG gearbox is kind of like shifting down into first, I guess, and then it kind of goes like that and wants to kind of take off again. And if you're not
horse? It sounds like a horse or a turkey.
Maybe, yeah, it's some horsepower there on the
that
loose.
Is, and I forgot it's a DSG. It's not a manual. Like
no, it's not. Or is it DSG or a DCT, or they're all the same? Some sort of, flappy paddles. I mean, it works reasonably well most of the time, but like, I'm just like, should I be doing that? That's a bit weird.
Interesting. Okay.
What are the downsides? I mean, slightly plasticky interior we mentioned, but I can live with that. Lack of CarPlay is a bit like, what year are we in kind of thing. That's a bit annoying.
And what year is the car again?
2019.
Okay. So yeah, I would expect CarPlay and Android Auto.
I mean,
all that.
It has one cup holder, which is like incredibly shallow as to be unusable.
Is it designed to like hold an espresso maybe and not a large
like in what was that movie, Talladega Nights, where like, do you remember that? Like Sacha Baron Cohen is the guy like sipping his espresso driving.
That's right. So Sacha Baron Cohen was an interior design consultant. I like it. So Hugo, I was thinking about this last night. I have an illness and I don't know how to cure it. This is quite serious. This is actually really serious. It's not, because I'm just not a serious person. So I have a problem where, and I think maybe other people have this issue too. I'm on this timetable of a year of ownership passes and I start to get bored with the car that I have. Okay. And I have to start reminding myself like, hey, this is why you bought that car. And I ping pong between going, well, I just want something that's comfortable and good utility and decently fun to drive. Yes. And then now in the past year, I've totally flipped and gone, I want more sportiness out of this, and I can compromise on the utility.
Okay.
And so, as we talked about, like I've had a series of cars that I've owned for about a year, and then I move on to something else. And one of the biggest problems is I never make money when I sell a car, and I probably overpay when I buy. So it's a money-losing proposition every time. But I'm starting to get that itch a little bit. The way you're raising your eyebrows implies.
No, I'm just interested to hear where this goes. Just keep going.
Your dirty mind on what that itch means.
Not that. I'm just wondering which car is on the block.
Well, the car that would be on the block is my E39 Touring. And it's because my wife's car, she has an Alfa Romeo Giulia, which I love. And oddly enough, lately it's been more reliable than the BMW. But then I remind myself like, hey, you bought this BMW for a reason. And I've actually been pushing it a bit more on the street and going, oh, it's more sporty than I thought. So that's nice. But I'm really trying hard to get out of this new car every year, because it gets expensive. And I just think it's a bad habit. Overall, it's not like we're talking about, shoes or socks. We're talking about a large purchase. And I'm not going to do it. But the fact that I have this feeling in the back of my mind every year, like clockwork, is kind of like, what the heck's going on, man?
Yeah.
Do you get that? Do you find yourself getting bored with totally really quickly?
Totally. It's like, but for me, part of the issue is that I could sit here and I could probably list off 100 cars that I would love to own. but I don't necessarily want to have them all like for the rest of my life. It's like, but I would want to have them more than for a day or a month. And it's like I think it's just kind of hard to be like. In some ways, it's like, well, would you just choose one meal to eat every night, like day after day, year after year? Like, variety is the spice of life. But then, yeah, I don't know. There is some part of me that's like, I kind of like the idea of that they're like people in the French countryside, like will go out and they'll buy a brand new Renault Clio and just drive it for 25 years until it dies. And then they'll go out and buy another brand new one. Right. And like are not sort of fussed about the fashion or anything like that. I mean, I think we kind of get a bit like taught that we're supposed to have these like 3-year cycles on the lease kind of thing. But it's like, that's really expensive as well, to your point. Like you realize like I'm putting down a down payment. I'm paying for this every month. And then at the end of the 3 months, like it's just gone and I have nothing to show for it. And now I have to find another deposit again and another monthly payment, right?
Yeah. You're not walking away with owning it and selling it at the end.
No. I mean, to your point on like, sure, it would be wonderful if you were picking cars and hopping between them as their values were appreciating or at least sort of flat and you weren't losing. Yeah. But I think for me, it's like, it's more a question of like, well, how much are you losing rather than like, are you going to be losing or winning? Because you're definitely going to be losing kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely. And the cars I'm interested in are, I don't know where they're going. Like almost everything I'm interested in, I believe is at the bottom of its depreciation curve, but I don't really know. And obviously like things in the world economically are up and down and you don't know where they're going to go. So it's, so the car that I'm really, having a hard time getting out of my mind is, the McLaren 570. And I'd be equally happy with an S or a GT, but if it was a GT, I'd want the S suspension setup because it's a bit more sporty. It's like 10% higher spring rates and all that kind of stuff. And I've gone through a whole thing about why that car. And so I think one of the main things. Okay, so McLaren's notoriously reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. No one can see it, but the face you're making is a strong one of doubt. And lurking on the groups online and forums and like that, it's people's experiences are hit or miss. Some people have said, "Oh, I've had this 570, it's been flawless, no problem at all." Other people have said, "Oh my God, it's been in the shop more than it's been in my garage over the past 3 years or 2 years." Also heard, definitely do not own one without a warranty, which is $5,000 a year. So not insubstantial. In comparison, like extend warranties on a Porsche are like the $700 to $800 range from what I've heard, depending on the model. So I was like, okay, but the 570 sticks out for a couple reasons. One, it's not the 720. So I kind of have a thing about underdog cars, like ones that get overshadowed by a model higher up in the lineup. Also, it's a conventional suspension. It doesn't have the cross-linked hydraulic suspension, which can be maintenance-wise tougher. From what I've heard, the accumulators on McLarens tend to go. It's expensive replacing them, and frankly, it's cheaper. It's the cheapest model, unless you look at the much older MP4 12Cs. I think it's just 12C now. Those are all around the same price, the 12Cs and the 570s. I just couldn't get into how the 12C looks.
The 570 is definitely a much sort of neater, like more resolved design, isn't it? Yes. The 12C does look a bit sort of prototype, like kind of beta version.
Yeah. And it's literally, they introduced a new model, the 650, and they didn't change the back end of the car, as far as I can tell, at all. They just slapped a new front end on it. It's like they went and took, a first-gen Toyota Camry and then put a third-gen Toyota Camry front end on it. They're like, ta-da! And you're like, wait, what? What is this? It's kind of, I can't get over that. But so I've driven a 570 before. I liked it. The two things that stood out, though, is even for a twin turbo on a V8, it's laggy. There's a significant amount of turbo lag, which is interesting. And I think you can plan around that. The other, so that's not that big a deal. The other one that's a bigger deal for me is I would absolutely want to track it. And I'm a little bit concerned about consumables. So I don't know. And I also do not want to sell my NSX for it. The NSX, like we kind of, it's a human being, but the reality is the relationship with that car, it has its ups and downs. It's mostly just kind of flat right now. I don't drive it enough, so that's definitely a problem. And so where I'm kind of going is, all right, this is pretty pricey to not sell a car in exchange to pay for it. So I'm kind of thinking it's like, all right, you find a reasonably priced 570, it's under warranty, and you keep it for a year. That's your commitment, is I'm going to keep it for a year, and then we'll see. Maybe at the end of the year you go, look, one of these two has to go. I'm not going to keep both. Financially, it feels irresponsible. But I don't know. What do you think? Am I crazy? I feel like people do this. People like will buy cars that are way out of their league price wise and just keep it for 6 months and then get rid of it. But I don't know. Am I stupid?
Well, I mean, but ultimately, like, then what it costs you is like, sure, you have to come up with that lump up front, but ultimately, with any car, really what it costs you is the delta between when you buy it and then when you sell it, right? And so if you minimize that time period, and if it's a vehicle that is not going to have a huge swing during that time, then actually, like, you could buy it, enjoy it for 6 months, go, oh, that was great, and now I've done a scratch my itch, and then sell it for close to what you bought it for, and then there you go, you're done, kind of thing, you're out. Like, I mean, that was even part of the man maths for me on the Alpine. Is I was like, okay, it's not wildly expensive to buy, but it's like not super cheap either. But in my mind, I was like, well, it's probably not going to lose a huge amount of value over a year or two, or whether I keep it a shorter time or a longer time. I think it will probably devalue less than, for example, like, the 2.5 metric ton SUV that, like costs whatever, So, I mean, I think that's probably from a sort of financial perspective, the kind of calculation. I suppose part of the thought, though, as well, is like, so say you had that in the garage, like what job is it doing? Like what kind of, when are you taking that out that you wouldn't have been taking the NSX or the MX-5? And then having that in the garage, like what does that mean for those others, right? Because you are going to want to use it. Oh, yeah. And then like if you're not driving the NSX a huge amount now, then you probably, like, how much are you going to be driving it when you've got a McLaren in the garage? Not at all, probably.
And especially if I know, like, there's a ticking clock. It's like, oh, this is not a forever car. Right. I've committed to keeping it for a year, and at the end of the year, I'll reevaluate what's going to go. Yeah. So I imagine those 12 months, like, it would be McLaren all day, every day. And you're right. The NSX gets moved, like, I would say every 2 to 3 months, which is not very often at all. It's probably not nearly enough. I drove it last night, which was great. Not a very long trip, but I did drive it, got warmed up thoroughly and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I think the NSX would barely move at that point.
Yeah. And even to your point of like doing sort of like an A/B test and saying like, okay, I'm going to define a time period. I'm going to run both of these in parallel, right? Even if I'm driving one more than the other, and then I'm going to decide. Do you really imagine that at the end of that year, that some random 570 could be enough for you to say, okay, I'm now willing to part with this NSX that I've had for how many years and put so much blood, sweat, and tears and built so many stories and memories with, that I would then be, if you're not ready now, are you going to be ready in a year to wave that car goodbye?
Yeah.
I mean, some part of me is like, I can't really imagine you without that car, right? Even though, of course, it's just a car, right? And I'm sure someday you won't have it anymore. But like,
so are you saying everyone I know will forget me because I don't have the NSX anymore? I'll have no
who
value.
Even are you anymore, Jami?
You're the NSX guy.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Do I know you?
That's really all I have to offer. Calls are denied. No one's picking up anything.
Yeah.
I've been blocked. It's like, oh, you got rid of the NSX? Done. No, you're absolutely right though. Like, I don't know if I would be ready to move on. Ideally it'd be, well, I have them both, but it does answer the question of, it raises the question of, for what purpose? Like, why do you have both of these in the garage? What are you doing? You barely drive one of them, and now you're adding another mid-engine sports car. What? Yeah, I think it's a very valid question of what is the purpose of this car? Why are you taking on this financial burden? And all of this could just be a theoretical exercise. It could be something I actually do. It could be just me thinking. Yeah, but it all stems from this like itch again that I have on a regular basis of getting a little bored of this, or I drive something else and I go, oh, this is really cool. And you start to think about other cars. I think the problem for me is the perfect daily driver either doesn't exist or it's way too expensive. And that's the big challenge that I face.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, and again, the rational mind says, let's think about the journeys that we take, and actually, like, you know, what kind of roads are those on, and what is the traffic like, and what is the parking like, and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. How frequently do I do that? How many people are in the car? You know, how many days a week is that, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's the mileage? What's the sort of time component there? And therefore, what are my criteria? And then what is the car, right? Like, that's the kind of, again, that's the, you know, my colleague winding up in a pickup truck kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the other part of it is to go, like, I think what you're describing is having a bit more of like a sort of visceral, like, kind of love at first sight. You go like that is speaking to me, and all of this other stuff, like, I realize is probably ridiculous.
Yes.
But that's a real thing that I'm feeling, right? And my feelings are my feelings, and I shouldn't just gaslight myself.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's how you approach it and how do you think about it. And I would like to say I'm the more rational, but I'm definitely closer to 50-50. I'm not all emotional, but I'm definitely not fully rational either.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. If not the 570, like, are there any others bubbling under that you could justify a bit more as a daily, or that could sort of take the place and play the role of the BMW? Like,
yeah. So
was that the S5 RS5 that you looked at?
Yeah,
is that sort of in that ballpark?
We should definitely chat about that really quickly. But yes, so yeah, there are other cars that like are on the candidate list. Unfortunately, almost all of them are a bigger financial commitment. I don't think the BMW is really worth that much. You know, maybe on a good day, $12,000.
Right.
Maybe. Which is not much, definitely in today's market to play with. I was definitely interested in an RS5 and an S5, but the Sportback in particular. And because I noticed that, wow, that the trunk area is actually pretty sizable. It's not quite as big as, you know, a boxy 5 Series Touring, but it's not that far off. And you could put a set of wheels and tires in there for sure. So yes, I did go in, check one out. I know that fast Audis have had, I think it's an evolving reputation, but if you go back a generation or two, they're really known for, hey, the engine is so far out in front of the front axle that they're just kind of understeer monsters and not particularly sharp and not that great. So I drove my BMW there, but earlier in the day I'd been driving my wife's Alpha. And the Alpha, super pointy steering. I absolutely love it. The handling on it is probably the characteristic that stands out the most. So I think this Audi RS5 had a tough thing to match up to. And it didn't. Like, straight up, it didn't. The interior was super nice. Audi interiors, I think, are really, really nice. I do worry about, like, maintenance. I think Audi is probably some of the toughest cars to work on. The packaging is really tight. The Sportback is as big as it looks in pictures. It's very, very large, could carry, I think, most of what I would need, if not everything that I would need it to. But some big problems with the car. And so I did my research as well. We should actually chat about this maybe for our next one. But, you know, I did a ton of YouTube viewing. I probably watched an hour and a half of YouTube reviews. And everyone universally was like, wow, this car's amazing. It's so much fun. It's fast. It's not like the old Audis, on and on and on. I was like, wow, this sounds, and I started to get pretty excited about it. Here are the biggest takeaways I got from it. The steering is like an 80s arcade racing game.
Oh.
It is so incredibly light. Like it was, the older racing games, you just spin the wheel and it would just keep.
Yeah.
I thought this car would do that. There was no feel whatsoever. It was incredibly light, and it has different modes, performance modes. This is in the most rowdy performance mode. I think it was dynamic. Maybe that was the middle one. Whatever the most dynamic mode. No feeling whatsoever. Like you could turn it with your pinky and you felt nothing at speed. So that was a big turn off. Like there was no weight to the steering at all. 2, the turn in was okay. Again, I'm comparing it to the Alpha, which has really great turn in. This one was 2 or 3 steps below it. All of those were okay. You could live with those, but the final blow was the throttle. So there's a significant delay. You'd go foot to the floor, again in the sportiest mode, foot to the floor, and there's a significant delay before it does anything. And it wasn't turbo lag. It was like the car was just like, are you sure you want full throttle? And then it responded.
Right. It's all the drive-by-wire and the programming and all the stuff that's going on between your foot and the engine, right? Which is like, kind of spoils the whole deal of it.
Yeah, it's like, well, hold on a sec. I'm the driver. I'm in the sportiest mode, and I've put the pedal to the floor. Yes, this is what I want. Why are you forcing me to think about it? Or why are you thinking about it? So I didn't like that. So I think if I was looking at RS5, I'd probably just get an S5 or maybe even A5 Sportback. It's like the sporty part of it was not that impressive to me.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I think a lot of those like fast Audis, they're kind of like, the core journey that they're built for is like the Autobahn, right? It's like, I want to be able to monster the outside lane at like, 140 miles an hour and be rock solid and steady and all the rest of it, and then be easy to drive everywhere else. Like, it's not about the twisty country road and actually the sort of the enjoyment of it. Like the Alpha, right? It's built for that. That's like, I'm sure a good few 100 kilos lighter and, weight distribution and all that kind of stuff. Again, like a car that's built more for the enthusiast.
Yeah, what I was hoping for was, a more utilitarian quadrifolio, and that's not what it is. It is. It's exactly as you said. It's like, hey, this is really convenient. It's if you want to, be a corner carver, this is not really the car. This is a different set of uses.
Yeah. By the way, there is the more utilitarian Giulia.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Stelvio.
Oh man, yeah, the Stelvio. I have this strong anti-SUV thing. I haven't driven one, and I do hear that it's fantastic, but then the asterisk in my mind is fantastic for an SUV or fantastic. That's not the same thing.
That is fair. Yeah. Have you never owned? You've owned SUVs though. You had that.
I have. Yeah. So, growing up, my parents had a series of Jeeps.
Yeah.
I think they had 4 in a row. And they were great. Okay. They were actually really good, although they progressively got less and less reliable. The first one we had was absolutely rock solid.
What were it? So Grand Cherokees, or
it was a Wagoneer, but it was like the Cherokee body with wood grain. It wasn't the old school like really large Grand Wagoneer. I think it was.
Yeah.
So it was like a Cherokee body, but like wood grain on the outside. And that car for 8 years just changed the oil, put gas in it, regular maintenance. That's it. Just marched along.
Yeah.
And then my dad had a Grand Cherokee. Then my mom had a Grand Cherokee. Then my dad had another Grand Cherokee. And I think that was the last American car that either of my parents bought. Because then they switched to Acuras, Infinitis, Porsche Cayenne. I think there was a Lexus RX in there. So they had a lot of SUVs, but they were, hey, we're in Michigan. It's snowy. We had a very steep driveway. I myself, I inherited that Wagoneer for a period of time. I think I had it for a couple of years near the end of college. That was my car. And then, yes, I had my Infiniti FX, which I really liked for an SUV. But and we might have talked about this, I tried to modify it and turn it into something that it wasn't. And then it had to go. I tried, man. I had put Volk T37s on it. I had coilover suspension on it, which if there was like a KW for it, it would have been fantastic. But like the only brand, or the nicest brand, I should say, that made coilovers for it were BC, and they weren't damped very well. I could not get that thing to handle like I wanted it to, and I was really trying to turn a turkey into a swan.
Polish a turd.
Yeah, I was trying to polish a turd. In this case, it was like a 4,800-pound turd, which is a lot of shit. But yeah.
But but this is like an interesting sort of like quandary, right? Of like, what will carry 4 full-size wheels and tires that you can buy in the US that is not an SUV? Because it's not much, actually.
Yeah. It's tough. And ideally for me, the criteria that I even like resorted to ChatGPT and said, help me find this. So what I really wanted was ideally rear-wheel drive, but all-wheel drive was fine.
Yeah.
At least a large V6 or a turbo V6 or a V8, ideally.
Mm-hmm.
Very utilitarian, not an SUV. And then this was the big clincher, Japanese. And there's options overseas. I've always, having had a Galant, a 99 Mitsubishi Galant, I would love a Legnum VR4. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And they're definitely available in the US. I see them up for sale from people who've already imported them, but they're not very reliable. Getting parts for them can be difficult. It's not as simple as, walking to your AutoZone and getting an alternator for it. And I've definitely considered it, but then the final nail in the coffin is I don't want to live with a right-hand drive car.
Yeah, no, you don't. You definitely don't.
So there's really not much.
Subaru?
Yeah, so Outback is one that's out there. I think if this was like 15 years ago, I definitely would have considered like an older legacy wagon.
Yeah.
That would have been actually really cool. But now it's like Outbacks, and Outbacks are I guess you could get one. You're like, all right, let me lower the suspension, color code the body cladding. I don't think it's very sporting though. I think that would be a big letdown. And so I'm really stuck with older cars like an E39 Touring, which is I shouldn't say stuck. It's not a bad place to be, but you don't have a lot of options. There's not much to pick from.
I mean, unless you had big money and you were looking at like a Porsche Panamera, was it Sport Turismo?
Yeah, yes.
But I don't know even whether you'd actually get the wheels in the back of one of those.
Yeah, because it's so
I'm not
small.
sure they're actually, it's not really a wagon. Or like an RS6 or something, which is just ridiculous money.
Yep, that's exactly it. I was like, oh man, RS6 would fit the bill. Yeah. But yeah, the cheapest ones are like just getting into 80, and that's now, much less a year or two ago. Which is now, and here's the other thing about the RS6. There's two things about the RS6 that bother me. It feels like it's just a little bit too big, which I would love if we got the RS4, but maybe after my RS5 experience, not so much. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you've noticed this, in a lot of Audis, man, when those things take off from a stop, they lift the front so much. There's just like crazy suspension lift in the front, and they squat a lot in the back. And like, I have to look at that and go, is that really intended? Is that what they thought was the right response to putting your foot to the floor? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Well, particularly not something that's front engine and 4-wheel drive, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd have thought the whole point of that configuration is to stop things like that happening, right? Yeah. Like you could kind of buy that like in a 2-wheel drive 911.
Absolutely.
Like all the way, isn't it? But yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, the RS6 it lifts its nose so much under full acceleration, and it doesn't look right. And I'm not just purely aesthetics. Like from a handling and dynamics perspective, that looks concerning. I don't know if anyone out there knows more about this, but yeah, I think it's weird.
Not me. But That's not my area of expertise. How about this? Here's a curveball for you. Get a trailer. Have another car with a tow bar and a trailer for your wheels. Because how often are you carting wheels around? It's not every day, is it?
You're absolutely right. It's not that often. And it does come back to, my earlier attack on people who buy cars for use.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, why are you buying this car? Just go rent a dang U-Haul for $20, man.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess putting my mind or my perspective in the shoes of those other people, it is a convenience factor. I guess it's kind of like, hey, like, why do you have a lifted truck? It's like, I don't off-road every day, but it's knowing that it's there if and when I need it or want it. And I think having a wagon is similar. It's like, someone sees something really cool at a furniture shop, or there's opportunity to pick up a bumper, and I'm like, I would love to go grab that bumper. It's like, I don't have a way to move it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. The perfect car doesn't exist. I think the perfect car would be a Giulia Quadrifoglio wagon.
Yes.
That would be perfect. Like the dynamics would be there, and it just has the utility. I did notice that the 2019 and up Quadrifoglios have rear folding seats. So I was like, do we get two of them? But that feels weird. But maybe.
I don't know. His and hers quad fogs is quite cool, actually.
It could happen. And those things just keep dropping in price, too.
Yeah. Well, because nobody wants to take the risk, right? But like, to your point, like, they can't all be lemons.
That's true. Thank goodness so far the one we've had for a year has not been
it is such a shame they didn't make a wagon or a sort of sportbacky type thing, because like I would have been all over that as well. Like if you could get a dog in the back of one, like that would be great.
Oh, it would be awesome. The other one that people do mention, and I do think this would fit pretty well, is IS300 Sport Cross.
Oh yeah, I remember
smaller,
those.
And the shape of the back end isn't as useful for carrying carrying stuff, but really torquey, straight six, build quality. And I've had an IS300 sedan that was a lot.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Not like a fast or powerful call by any means, but torquey and really fun to drive around. The Sport Cross only came in automatic. People have swapped into manual. I'd be fine with automatic. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll revisit that.
Well, what about find some leggy 3 Series touring that someone's engine swapped an M3 motor into?
Oh, wow. Yeah. There have been, I think there's been one or two that I've seen over the past 2 or 3 years that someone was selling.
Or keep your E39, find a crashed M5 of that generation, steal the drivetrain.
Yeah, that is like every E39 Touring's owner's dream is to do the swap, and people have certainly done it. Yeah, that would be interesting too.
That would be pretty cool.
I would like to avoid like a super involved project, but that would be very cool. There's no doubt about it.
That would feel worth it.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like a project of, I'm putting an LS3 in. It's like, no, it was made for this chassis. It would, I believe, largely bolt up. Like Speed Academy on YouTube did a fantastic build of one. And then they put it up for sale. And it didn't go for crazy money. And I'm kind of like, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
It probably was.
I mean, I suppose you could but you can put an LS3 in anything, right? Pretty much.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you could put an LS3 in my shoes if you want. You put an LS3 in my Milwaukee impact gun.
Well, didn't Top Gear at some point like have an LS3 and like make it power a blender?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Idiots. I'm into that actually. I think sort of retrofit like M5 running gear into, or make it like a sort of Alpina like recreation.
That would be
nice.
With
the pinstripes and the and the spoked alloys and
I mean, so with the M5, like the fact that it's been done makes it more palatable. It's like,
Yes.
okay. And from what I've seen, the swaps that people have done, like they've gone the full deal. Like all the electronics work as if it was an M5 from factory.
Huh.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would.
So yeah, I yeah, I'll have to think about that one more. I did promise that I wouldn't take on big automotive projects ever, which is probably a really stupid promise because ever is a long time.
Yeah, it's almost like ever, forever. But let me ask you this question. If it was there and available tomorrow, your E39, like redone with M5 running gear nicely, that versus 570.
Oh gosh, I think the M5 in a heartbeat.
Really?
Yeah, just because. Well, in my mind,
Because in that scenario, you keep your NSX as well, right? So now you
Yes.
have NSX and M5 Touring versus 570.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I cannot imagine having the McLaren instead of my NSX. I just can't
Right,
get that in my
right.
head right now. That could change. I don't know. 6 months from now, I'm like, forget it. NSX time to go. Had it 15 years. Let's end that chapter and move on.
Yeah,
But right now, as I sit, like, there's no doubt I would use an M5 wagon. I would use it every day. I would use
yeah,
it so
totally.
much more than
Yeah,
a McLaren. Shit, you could give me 5 McLarens and I would use the M5 wagon more often. So
yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, that's a good proposition. Yeah, I may have to do some more research into
And then you think
swapping
as
them.
well, like, like they talk about with clothing, cost per wear, right? So it's like it's okay to buy something that's expensive if you're gonna like wear it every day, like I don't know, a coat in Britain in the winter kind of thing, right? Or I don't know, you get a new pair of glasses and you go, it's worth spending the money because I'm gonna wear them every single day, right? Versus something cheaper that you're gonna wear once in a month, kind of thing.
That's true.
And again, it's like to that point, like even if you spent the same money on sort of M5ing your E39 and on a 570, if you use the M5 like every single day, multiple times a day, versus once on a Sunday morning for your 570, like then it's actually cheaper.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's yeah, I'm not in a position to buy cars to just stare at them. Like I have to use
Yeah,
them. And even
yeah,
I think
yeah.
even if I was in a position to buy them to just stare at them, I would not want to do that. I would want to actually use them.
It seems like a real shame though, doesn't it? Particularly because it's like, that's not good for the car. Like
No,
if they
it's not.
just sit there, that doesn't make them happy.
Yeah.
Like they want to be driven. They want to be like, I mean, it's funny, like again, coming back to the Alpine, next weekend, there's like I had caught so these various little sort of issues I've been having. So I booked it in for a checkup at the local garage. There's one actually about half an hour from here. And I got chatting to the dude, and he's like, "Oh, we have like a local little group, and we do meetups like once a month, all sort of local Alpine owners." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And so the first one is like next Sunday, and I was thinking like, oh, it's my first cars and coffee sort of thing in the Alpine. I should wash it and all that because it's filthy at the moment. It's just like covered in like road muck and all the rest of it, country lanes. And I was like, no, I'm going to leave it dirty, and I'm going to show up in my filthy,
Ooh.
A110 and like be like, yeah, I've been driving this, I've been using it. That's
Nice.
the
I
point
like
of it,
that.
right?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's dirty because I drive it.
It's dirty, like like maybe I just need to do the thing where I write on the back with my finger. I only wish my wife was this dirty.
I'm sure that'll go over well. You'll be sleeping in it soon.
Yeah,
I hope there's room to lay those seats down and put in a pillow because
they're fixed back, man. They're
oh, you're
like...
screwed, dude. You bought the wrong car. You better get the Volvo and set up a bed in the back.
Yeah. I mean, the Volvo, you probably just could put like a single mattress in the back and you'd be totally
There you
fine.
go. When
But
you're in
yeah,
the doghouse will be the Volvo. We should
Yeah.
probably wrap this one up. So for the I don't know, what are we up to? 6 fans now? 6 people listening.
Hey.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Email us at info@npptg It has nothing to do with nipple targets or nipple top gear. It's no particular place to go. I know it sounds like
NPPTG is quite catchy.
It is.
NPPTG. It just trips off the tongue.
Yeah. We have no merch aside from an email address. And you can use that email address all you want. It's actually free merch. But we have no t-shirts or stickers or mugs or anything like that. We're waiting to get to 10 users or listeners, and then we'll start doing that.
Yeah. Let's do merch, Jami. That would be fun.
Yeah,
why
let's
not?
do some merch. But we should do like edgy merch, like an NPPTG condom.
Like, I wish my wife was this dirty.
Yes, on the condom. What do you think? I think we should do it. We're gonna end up single broke men, but that's okay.
Yeah. That's all 6 listeners just tuned out there.
Well, please don't leave because it's your couches we'll be crashing on when we're divorced. So, please don't stop listening. We need your addresses.
That sounds a bit creepy. Like we're gonna come round.
Well, we may. We won't have anywhere else to sleep. But no, we promise we won't unless you invite us. In which case, we'll gladly come and do a show live in your living room. All right. Well, we're gonna stop before we really creep people out. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.